Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We'll begin our webinar shortly. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's MDOT grants webinar. We're waiting for a few more attendees to log in, and we'll begin our presentation shortly. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this year's MDOT grants webinar for fiscal year 2024 for bicycle, pedestrian, trail, and transit projects. Today, we're going to learn about the various MDOT grant programs, take a brief poll to better understand our audience, and have a time for question and answer at the end. All participants are muted, but please access the question functions to ask any questions you might have at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on MDOT's YouTube channel later this week. So to begin, we are going to review the Maryland Highway Safety Office, Recreational Trails, Transportation Alternatives, and the Lamphier Bikeways Network Program, as well as the statewide Transit Innovative Grants. And to start us off, we'll review some of the bicycle pedestrian funding opportunities available through the Maryland Highway Safety Office. Cynthia?
Thanks, Nate. Hi, everybody. I'm Cynthia Spriggs. I'm the Pedestrian Bicycle Speed Program Manager for the MDOT-MBA Highway Safety Office. Next slide, please, Nate. Nate, am I able to forward the slides? Nope, never mind, thank you. So our mission is to save lives, prevent injuries by reducing motor vehicle crashes through the administration of comprehensive network of traffic safety grants. Our grants are targeted at changing behavior through education and enforcement activities in Maryland. So our funding comes from two sources. We receive the federal funding and state funding. Federal funding was previously under the FAST Act. Now we're receiving the federal funds through the bipartisan infrastructure law known as BILL, or referred to as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJH. Our federal funding is we are a pass-through entity. It comes through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA. Our grants are reimbursable grants with no match requirement. We encourage projects in collaboration with the 4 E's of traffic safety: engineering, EMS, education, and enforcement. Enforcement and education are focusing on changing behaviors and are eligible for MHSO grants. And our MHSO grants are to support the Maryland Strategic Highway Safety Plan, also known as the SHSP. If you're applying for our grants, please refer to the SHSP when completing your application. It can easily be found on our website, zero-maryland.gov. Click on the Highway Safety tab and select Strategic Highway Safety Plan. There's also data on our website. However, if you do plan on applying, please reach out to me directly and I can provide jurisdiction-specific data. To be eligible for an MHSO grant, you must be a not-for-profit organization, government agency or regional authority, law enforcement agency, or an institute of higher learning. Our grants are highly competitive traffic safety grants that focus on a data-driven approach. The grant would focus on changing behaviors, either through proven countermeasures or new or innovative ideas. All grants must have the ability to be evaluated. So applicants should be sure to propose projected addresses that identify highway safety priority, include strategic action steps and measurable outcomes. These are just some of the questions to help you guide in pre-planning for the MHSO grants. Again, please feel free to contact me to discuss any potential ideas. And some of our potential projects would be general highway safety projects, such as countermeasures that work, which you can find on the NHTSA website. Pilot projects, which would be new projects that are developed or implemented at the local level that could strongly benefit the state, or funding for projects related directly to the SHSP pedestrian and bicycle emphasis area strategies. For our law enforcement partners, we have funding available for overtime activities as well as training on enforcement for best management practices. If you're in law enforcement or passing the information through to law enforcement, please reach out to one of our law enforcement liaisons. If you're unsure who to contact, I'll be more than happy to introduce you and put you into contact with the appropriate liaison. And here's just some pictures of some of the grants we've had in the past or currently have. We've had our grantees that have purchased bike helmets or lights or other needed safety equipment, educational material for use for public distribution, and safety campaigns that focus on providing educational information. And our FY24 grant application process is open. We have a deadline of next Friday, February 24th. Our funding runs in two different categories. Our state funding would run July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. And if it's federal funding, it's October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. We do all of our applications through our online grant projects for safety, also known as GPS. And Nate, if I could go to the next slide for that one. And this is to apply and to gain access to GPS. You'll go to our website, zerodeathsmaryland.gov, then click on the grants tab and click on safety grants. There's a link to GPS for the grant applications. And this is our grants application and login page. So all applications and reporting are done through our GPS system. If you're a new user to GPS, you'll see that bottom line of text before the emphasis area that says, if you would like to apply, click here. Log into GPS, request an account. Once you receive the account, you'll be able to apply for the grant. We will need 4 people to run the grant. You have a project coordinator, project director, financial administrator, and authorizing official. So if you don't already have a grant, all 4 of those role users would need to go ahead and apply. There is a user manual for GPS in there, but if you have any questions, I'm in it daily and be more than happy to help you out with anything that may arise. And so with that, just please reach out to me by email, which is right on the screen, cspriggs@mdot.maryland.gov, with any questions, thoughts, ideas. I'd be more than happy to discuss them with you. I'd like to thank all of you for your time. And now I'd like to go ahead and to introduce Marissa from Recreational Trails program.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Cynthia. As she mentioned, my name is Marissa Lenoci. I'm the Recreational Trails Grant Program Consultant. So the Recreational Trails Grant Program is a grant program out of State Highway Administration with funding from Federal Highway through the IIJA. The purpose of the program is to support maintenance and development of a variety of trail types, motorized and non-motorized, land and water trails throughout the state. And we receive approximately $1 million in federal funds annually, with projects averaging an award amount of about $70,000. We are guaranteed $1 million in federal funding. However, our legislation does allow us to utilize funding from the Transportation Alternatives Grant Program, which you will hear about shortly, for projects that exceed our annual award amount. And if you are considering a larger recreational trail project, we do consider application eligibility on a case-by-case basis, and you would be welcome to contact the program manager, Cheryl, or myself, if you would like to discuss that project eligibility. And those large-scale projects would be approximately $500,000 or over. And as I mentioned, we do allow for a variety of trail uses as listed. We are a reimbursable grant program with an 80% award of federal funds and a 20% match. That match can either be a cash match or it can be in kind. So we do allow for things such as staff time or volunteer hours to be used as that match. And our grants can be awarded to both government entities and nonprofits. And when you go through the project, we are looking for the completion of the project scope as opposed to a lump sum payment. All our grants have a 4-year MOU as well. And this year, the application opens April 14th and closes May 15th, with the application being hosted on the Maryland One Stop page. Just to provide a general timeline for our application and project process, you can see the timeline here on the screen. Applications are submitted in the spring. As mentioned, April 14th is the application open this year and close on May 15th. We have the advisory committee deliberate on the project applications and provide recommendations for award, which go to the MDOT administrator for approval. And we do our award notifications in the fall, typically late fall via a press release. If you are awarded a project, we generally begin with a kickoff meeting and execution of the MOU. From there, we go through the project initiation phase, including NEPA, the right-of-way certification, any design reviews and approvals that are needed, depending on the type of project, and federal authorization. We then go through the federal procurement process, which we assist with, and then move into the construction and inspection phase, and lastly, invoicing for the reimbursable funds and project closeout. As mentioned, we do have a wide variety of eligible project types and activities that can include anything, including the construction of new trails or maintenance of existing. We do allow for funds to be used for acquisition of easements for trail development, as well as development and rehabilitation of both trailside and trailhead facilities, and have also funded projects for boat and kayak launch construction or rehabilitation. This is just a very high-level description of some of the eligible project activities. And a lot more detail can be found in our program manual, which is available on the SHA website. And of course, if you have any questions about a specific project type, we are always happy to set up time for a phone call or email to discuss your project in greater detail. We have found that the advisory committee provides some greater consideration to scopes that would include any variety of things like providing extra linkages and the completion of existing trail systems. We are always looking for projects that improve access to motorized and non-motorized water trails. That can include things such as signage or mapping of those trails. Any projects that redesign, reconstruct, or relocate trails can make them more sustainable and provide environmental benefit. Projects that expand recreational opportunities for motorized vehicle users or motorized boat users. Projects that enhance access for people with disabilities to the outdoors, and projects that provide opportunities for beginner trail users. Some general best practices for submitting your recreational trails grant application would include providing a complete and descriptive project scope, and an additional description if the funding request is part of a larger scope. This could include something like adding a soft launch for a kayak as part of a larger rehabilitation of an existing park. If a project does include a structure such as a bridge or a boardwalk or a platform, we recommend bringing in approximately 30% level design plans so that we are able to perform an adequate review of those structures. If your project is not on your own right-of-way, a letter of support from the landowner to ensure that they are aware of the project and are in support of it. And lastly, a detailed project cost and match description summary. So if you are considering a certain project and you would like to know whether or not your costs or match items are eligible, I recommend reviewing the Recreational Trails Program Manual. And again, if you do have any further questions or are considering a specific item that's not listed, you can certainly let us know. So as I mentioned, if you have any potential projects that you would like to discuss, you are always welcome to contact either myself or the program manager, Cheryl Ladata. Our contact information is here. And as a reminder, our applications open April 14th and close May 15th this year and are available on one stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marissa. Joining us today is Christy Bernal, who will give an overview of the Transportation Alternatives Program. Christy, can you access the mic? Christy, are you available? Not hearing Christy, I'll go ahead and provide the updates and the background for the Transportation Alternatives Program the best I can. For corrections afterwards, please contact Brittany or Christy in the process after the webinar. So the purpose of the Transportation Alternatives Program, it's a reimbursable federal aid funding program that improves transportation-related projects and enhances the multimodal system. Since they are federal funds, each state receives a designated portion of transportation alternatives set aside from the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, which was recently renewed under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Transportation alternative funds are allocated between the various metropolitan planning organizations, as well as having a state flex funds that can be obligated across any area of the state. On this slide, you can see the FY24 appropriations that are available for the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, the Wilmington Area Planning Council, and then $11 million available across the state. To be eligible for transportation alternatives, the project has to be surface transportation related. It has to meet one of the 9 categories that the federal government considers eligible for the program. It needs to benefit all potential users and be free of charge to for a broad segment of the public. The projects need to maintain a durable duration for the intended project public use and comply with all state and federal regulations, such as Americans with Disabilities Act and the National Environmental Policy Act. The Transportation Alternatives Fund program is 80%, is a completely reimbursable grant program with 80% reimbursable at the end during the project and 20% required as a match. TA funding is available for either a feasibility study, design, or construction. Construction will need to include a construction inspector and testing of materials with the cost breakdown to ensure that the project maintains durability. For feasibility, design, and construction funding, sponsors must submit, for feasibility studies, sponsors must submit an application, a scope of work, cost estimate, and project map of the project. For design funding, sponsors must submit concept level drawings with the application that delineate the limits of disturbance, any right-of-way impacts, and community outreach for the project. Also include planning level estimates and material needs. For construction funding, sponsors must provide at least 30% design plans. At least 30% are designed, 30% design plans are preferred. Engineers' estimate and construction costs are also needed, and they need to demonstrate a direct contact with all affected landowners. For project sponsors, they have a couple of responsibilities for the duration of the TA grant. All the design, project management, and construction is to be carried out by the project sponsor. All aspects of the project must comply with federal requirements. The project sponsor must coordinate progress with MDOT State Highway Administration on a monthly basis and adhere to milestone requirements. Commit to any maintenance activities for the lifespan of the project and provide 20% cash match for the reimbursable project costs. Eligible project categories include provisions of facilities for bikes and pets, infrastructure that's related with safe routes for non-drivers, any type of conversion of abandoned railroad corridors for trails, environmental mitigation for transportation construction such as highway runoff, and construction of turnouts, overlooks, and viewing areas for projects. They can also be used to inventory, control, or remove outdoor advertising. TA funds can be used for historic preservation, archaeological activities, vegetation management, and also safe routes to schools. It's a slide of some of the recently completed projects using TA funding, including the Cross Island Trail on Kent Island, the Maryland 413 side path in Somerset County, and also stormwater management facilities in Carroll County. To apply for funding, there is a link on the TA website. You'll be redirected to the one-stop application website, which is the base for most of the projects on this webinar. So this year, the application window will be from April 14th to May 15th. For the applications, there needs to be a detailed project scope with a starting and end date, a detailed budget, which includes construction, inspection, and material testing, a project map with the limits of disturbance, any right-of-way or environmental impacts, needed stormwater mitigation, and a project schedule. You can access the Transportation Alternatives Program Manual online at the link on the screen. And the manual was updated in March of last year to provide a breakdown of the program and the process that needs to be followed to implement any TA project. Federal Lands Access Program, also known as FLAP, is a federal fund program similar to TA. It's a federal program that eligible projects need to be facilities associated with a public road, bridge, trail, or system that is located on, adjacent to, or provides access to any federal lands. Also requires a 20% cash match, and the applicant must own the proposed facility. Eligible applicants include state, county, tribal, and city and other local governments that have own or a maintenance responsibility for the project to support federal land management agencies. And eligible activities include rehabilitation, construction, maintenance, planning, engineering, and preventative maintenance. You can find more information on the TA website for both transportation alternatives, safe routes to school, any guidance for local public agencies and subrecipients of federal funds, and then also the Federal Lands Access Program. If you have any questions, you can contact Brittany Jackson or Christy Bernal at the contact information on the page. And we will also provide the information on the slides in the chat if you didn't get a chance to copy it down. Our next program that I'll discuss is the Kim Lamphier Bikeways Network Program. This is the Bikeways program is a state-funded program that supports the development of Maryland's bicycle network program. It provides grant funding for project design, planning, and construction. And any local government agency or sub-agency within Maryland can apply. The Bikeways Network program is solely state funding. It comes from the Maryland Transportation Trust Fund. And applicants need to provide at least 20%. Applicants need to provide 20% of the total project cost or 20% of the Bikeways funding request. Because the Bikeways program is state funds, it can be used as the state funds can be used as a match for federal programs like transportation alternatives. In those cases where federal funds are being used to match, where Bikeways money is being used as a match for federal funds or vice versa, the applicant needs to provide at least 20% of the Bikeways funding request from a non-state or federal source. There are 3 categories of grants under the Bikeways program. Design and minor retrofit projects need to be completed in 2 years, and construction projects need to be completed in 3 years. For fiscal year 24, the Bikeways program will have $4.5 million available for awards. This year, we've increased the project cost limit for the minor retrofit from $100,000 to $200,000. This increase is due in part to cost increases for minor retrofit projects. Since most construction projects have been subject to inflationary costs, we saw it was appropriate to increase the amount of funding that was requested for these projects. On the Bikeways website, you can find the application recommendations and project deliverables documents that not only provide guidance and recommendations on how to make a successful application, but then also to have a successful project at the end of the grant. Also on the website is the Bikeways Project Cost Estimator. This is a spreadsheet-based planning level cost estimating tool that can provide a rough estimate for how much funding you might need to be requesting for a Bikeways project. As part of the Bikeways program, we are currently accepting letters of intent due April 1st. Letters of intent can be as simple as an email that lets MDOT know that your organization is interested in applying for Bikeways funding. Information required for the letters of intent include a project title, description, a project sponsor's contact information, the physical limitations of the project, and also a general cost estimate for the entire project and how much will be requested through the Bikeways program. This year, the application portal will be open from May 1st through June 1st. During the summer, the Bikeways Review Committee will review the applications and make an award announcement in the fall, along with transportation alternatives and rec trails programs as well. One example of design projects can be complex final design like we have here in Salisbury at the West College Avenue. Design projects can cover anything from a feasibility study to preliminary design to final design for a project. Minor retrofits can include anything from bicycle parking to upgrading storm grates on designated bike routes, automated bicycle and pedestrian counters, and also a lot of smaller scale construction projects. Smaller scale construction projects that fit under minor retrofits include the Northwest Salisbury Bikeways, Phase 1. For construction projects, there's no limit on how much can be requested for these projects, but they are generally larger in scale and include anything from bike lanes, protected bike lanes, shared use paths, and even conversion of a rail trail bridge like you see here over Tahoe Creek on the Eastern Shore. So like I said, we're currently accepting letters of intent through April 1st. This will help us provide any additional information that grantees might need before the application window opens. And applications will be due on June 1st of this year. And you can access more information on the Bikeways website at the address on the screen. You can also reach us with any additional questions at mdbikeways@mdot.maryland.gov. Now I'll hand things over to Stephen Miller, who will talk about the statewide transit innovative grants.
All right, thank you so much, Nate. Yes, as he said, my name is Stephen Miller. I am a on-site consultant for MDOT MTA as the STIG program manager. So STIG is the Statewide Transit Innovation Grant, and we're looking for applications this upcoming spring. Next slide. So I wanted to give a brief overview of what the objective of the STIG grant is. It is MDOT MTA's Statewide Transit Innovation Grant is a competitive grant program that supports local efforts to, 1, improve transit reliability, 2, improve access and connections to activity centers, and 3, improve transit mobility options. Next slide. And the STIG grant is funded through state funding. So Maryland local governments and locally operated transit providers may apply for this grant. One stipulation for this grant is that they all must be completed within 3 years of being awarded the grant. The application period for this fiscal year will be running from May 1st through June 30th. And then projects for the grant must comply with federal and state regulations, have a local match of at least 20% of the project cost, and they should be consistent with existing transportation and land use plans. A little more on that last bullet. When you apply for the grant, one of the questions that we will be asking for is how does this project fit in with local plans? So for anything that you can point to, such as comprehensive plans, such as county priority letters, that will help your application in the end. Next slide. The typical grant award for STIG is between $50,000 and $150,000. You can definitely consider going above that. We have awarded projects that cost approximately $500,000. So, but that does provide a good guideline as far as what the scale of the projects that you should consider when applying for STIG. STIG is also a fairly flexible grant where it can cover many different phases, including planning, design, engineering, and construction. We do not provide funding for right-of-way and maintenance. Those two things will not be covered by STIG. But some examples, but absolutely are not limited to, are mobile fare payment systems, innovative scheduling software for locally transit systems, dedicated bus lanes or HOV lanes, BRT, corridor assessments and studies, comprehensive routing studies, transit signal prioritization and queue jumping, comprehensive sign and bus stop upgrade programs, and mobility hubs and commuter parking amenities. For example, and I want to give a few more examples, such as in this last, we will fund anything from microtransit pilots to transit studies to figure out what might be the best for local municipalities or even county level. One thing that that cannot be funded through STIG are sidewalk improvements. That is one of the few things that we will not fund through the STIG grant. Next slide. If you have, again, applications are due by June 30th, 2023. Unlike many of the other grant programs that you've seen earlier, you can find additional grant information at mta.maryland.gov/grants. On that website starting May 1st, it will be updated to show the latest application form and how to apply. You can also find grant guidelines and guidance on the website if you are interested, but you can also always contact me at smiller6@mdot.maryland.gov. I'm more than willing to walk through with any and all of you on what, if you want to talk through eligibility or what can and cannot be covered by the grant. I am always available.
Thank you, Stephen. Before we go to our poll questions, we at least wanted to hit a couple of other MDOT initiatives that are underway. They might seem similar, but they're very different and are used to meet a different federal or state requirement. The first is the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration. They've recently completed a bicycle pedestrian safety assessment for the state of Maryland. This was conducted through the Maryland Highway Safety Office and is now available for public review. And we'll put a link to all these in the chat. Also underway is the federally required vulnerable road user assessment. Every state in the nation is required to provide an assessment, and this initiative is being undertaken by the State Highway Administration over the course of the year. And please look for future information on outreach with the assessment. Also underway is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan update. As required by state law, this master plan is updated every 5 years in conjunction with the Maryland Transportation Plan. So we'll be getting public outreach in the coming months for the plan, and then have a draft for review over the summer, with final adoption being targeted for next January. Also underway is Maryland State Highway Administration's Pedestrian Safety Action Plan. As many of you know, this has been in the process for a couple of years, and so the plan is looking to be finalized within the coming months for public review and implementation. Also, there's new avenues for federal funding. The Safe Streets for All program recently awarded several projects across the state of Maryland. This is going to be an annual grant program that's available. So look for another opportunity to secure funding to address highway safety measures for bicycle or pedestrian users. That's going to be probably available this coming September. Another brand new program from the federal level is the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program. This new program was stipulated in the new IIJA bill, but was unfunded until just recently. This program looks to have about $45 million available for active transportation projects across the country, and we're looking for a notice of funding opportunity to be released later this year. Congressional appropriations are also can also be used for bicycle pedestrian projects. Over the past few months, there have been several projects across the state that have received federal earmarks for study or construction. Then here are some of the contact information for everyone that's presented today. Please reach out with any other questions that you might have for any of these programs. With that, I will begin our poll questions. So our first question is, what type of project are you looking to fund? We have everything from feasibility studies to preliminary design, advanced design, construction, enforcement, education or engagement, or maintenance. Please pick the one answer that you are looking that best describes your situation. We'll keep these polls open for less than a minute to give everybody a chance to reply. Viewing the results, it looks like most projects are aiming for a feasibility study, a preliminary design. About a third are looking at construction. Others are looking at enforcement, education, equipment, and less or so advanced design maintenance. For our next question, what type of grant are you interested in applying for? Maryland Highway Safety Office, Recreational Trails, Transportation Alternatives, Kim Lamphier Bikeways Network Program, or Statewide Transit Innovative Grants. Looking at the results, it looks like a third are interested in bikeways, a little less in transportation alternatives, about a fifth interested in rec trails, and the rest in highway safety office or transit innovative grants. Our next question is, how much funding are you interested in seeking? Less than 25,000, about 25 to 100,000, 100 to 250,000, or more than 250,000. Looking at the results, we have about 43% are looking for more than $250,000, with a third looking between 100,000 and $250,000, and about a fifth between 25,000 and $100,000. Our next question is, what part of Maryland will your project be implemented? Western Maryland, including counties between Garrett and Frederick, Central Maryland, Southern Maryland, the Eastern Shore, including Cecil County, or is it looking to be implemented statewide? Looking at the results, we have almost 2/3 of the projects being implemented in Central Maryland, with 18% on the Eastern Shore, 10% in Southern Maryland, and 7% in Western Maryland, and 2% statewide. Our next question: what is your experience with any of these grant programs? First time applying, applied in the past and have been unsuccessful, 1 or 2 successful applications with no completed projects, some successful applications and completed projects, or many successful applications and projects. Looking at the results, about 44%, this will be their first time applying, with a third saying with some successful projects and applications, and 12% with many successful applications and projects. And for our last question, do you intend to follow up with one of the grant managers before applying? Yes, no, probably, probably not, or I already have. So we have about 30% saying that they will follow up with one of the grant managers, with a little bit more than half saying they probably will. I think I speak for all presenters today when I say that we're here to help, and we're anxious and excited to help folks not only put together a successful application, but then also finish out a completed project as well. So now we'll have time for a few questions and answers. Feel free to use the questions function, and we can answer your questions as we're moving through. For a lot of folks, you can see that we've already had some of the questions answered, but we can still go through some of the more relative questions that are listed on the questions function. So we will make this presentation available electronically. The recording will be available on the MDOT YouTube channel, And we'll also make sure that the presentation and the slides are available on our website as well. Question was asked if the funding stream for safety grants was the same as enforcement grants. And Cynthia let us know that MHSO has general grants and law enforcement grants. Both receive funding from the same sources. But if you have more particular questions on those funding, then please reach out to Cynthia. And do applicants need to specify whether it's NHTSA or state funding? No, they do not.
Nate, if I could just interject real quick for
Yes.
that one. No, the timeline is the same whether you're applying for a state grant or whether your grant would be considered a state grant or federal grant requirements. Everything's the same timeline except for when it comes to the funding distribution. If you have any specific questions that your project may be better aligned with a certain time frame, please reach out to me and we can discuss that.
Thanks, Cynthia. Marissa, can you let us know how a recreational trail is defined?
Sure. So I would say, like, overall, as long as the purpose of that trail, whatever that looks like, is recreational in nature, then it is something that would be considered. Like, one differentiator for the Rec Trails grant program versus like transportation alternatives, for example, is that we do not fund like sidewalks, but we are able to fund shared use paths if they are part of a larger trail system, whether that's, you know, an urban trail system or, you know, like a trail system that's out in the woods. So I would really say that if you have a specific area in mind, I would strongly recommend that you contact Cheryl or myself so that we can review that area and help determine its eligibility, since it is a little bit vague.
Thanks, Marissa. Patty asks if STIG can be used to adopt buses to accommodate or carry bicycles. And Stephen indicated that yes, STIG can be used to make upgrades to your buses to accommodate bicycles. The Bikeways program has also been used to upgrade bike racks on buses as well. Nicholas Johnson asks, what is the difference between transportation alternatives and Bikeways grants? The main difference is that the Bikeways program is state funding, so there's less federal requirements. And the Bikeways program has to focus on a transportation bicycle project. So it does not fund mountain bike trails, shared use paths. Well, it does fund shared use paths, but it does not fund sidewalks. Whereas transportation alternatives, it's a little broader. So it will fund both pedestrian and bicycle projects. But it's also a federal program, so it has to adhere to all federal requirements. There was a request to email the slides to participants. Yes, we can probably do that. Additional requests for the contact information, it's available on the screen. Ken asked, bad driver behavior is an overarching problem. Is there a statewide campaign to influence our vehicle-dominated culture? Cynthia, would you like to elaborate on your answer there?
Yeah, so I just went ahead and answered that in the Q&A pod. So we do have, MHSO has our statewide campaigns. It's the Be the Driver. I put the link to our website in there that shows you all of it. It's to focus on being the driver who, for us, shares the road and the responsibilities of everyone in that. The Baltimore region has Signal Women campaigns, which again focuses on sharing the road for all users. They do also touch upon safety information that's not directly related to pedestrian and bicycle, but definitely contributes to, such as impaired driving, speeding, distraction. Same thing with the Washington region. They also have the Street Smart campaign, focusing very similar to the same way the Signal Woman campaign does in the Baltimore region. And then in the summer months, I forgot to include this one, but MHSO, partnering with State Highway Administration, has the Cheswick the Crab down in Ocean City as well.
Thanks, Cynthia. Brian asked, with more money available through bill, are our chances of getting two of the same grant more likely? Yes, there's a much better chance of being awarded a project since there's a greater diversity of funds. If your organization is interested in applying to more than one grant program, please let us know and we will coordinate on our end, especially between Bikeways and transportation alternatives. And also, can you use one grant as a match for the other? Yes, you can use both the Bikeways and transit grants as a match to federal grants, since both the Bikeways and the state grants are state funding. Those can be used as grants to match transportation alternatives or recreational trails. Another question is, when can we apply and what are the deadlines and expiration dates? So the various projects, grant programs have varying funding application windows. Looks like all of them will be closed by early June. And then we can provide the slides to you with the more specific dates for the grant program that you're interested in. And if you are applying for more than one, if you're applying to the Bikeways program with more than one project, you will let us need to know what your prioritized projects are. You can do that with just simply putting in a rank of 1, 2, 3, or more, whichever project you want to have funded the most, and put that at the top of your list. It looks like we've answered all the questions that we had in the questions bar. And with that, I will leave it open for any other additional questions or comments from our presenters. Hearing none, I'd like to again thank everybody for joining us today to review the grants that are available this year. Please feel free to reach us via email or by phone with any questions you might have for any of your grants or potential grant projects. And please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.